I'm super excited today to talk to you about how to build Pokemon Go. In this tutorial we'll talk more about how to build collisions inside Unity. And you might be thinking, what part of Pokemon Go is this? Well, it's simply this one right here. Here's a simple example of what we'll be building today. We'll be building a simple Unity game where you can use a Pokeball to hit Pikachu. So we'll get started by creating a project name inside Unity. Here we're just going to call this Pokemon Go Collisions and create. Then we have there just an empty Unity project, and the first step we're actually going to do here is create some folders that we can use to essentially store all of our assets while we create this project. So here we're going to create a folder and we're going to name this scripts, and then secondly we'll create another folder for our objects. Now the next stage is to import some assets. So we're going to import some assets. The assets that we're going to import is Pikachu and Pokeball. And then we'll just add in Pokeball quickly. And import. And now you'll see that we have both. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw these essentially onto our scene. So, and then we'll just need to edit some of these variables. So I'm going to change the position here of where Pokeball actually is. And just zoom out a little. And then what I'm actually going to do here is remove the plane. So we're going to break this prefab for the purpose of the tutorial. Then we have the Pokeball. I'm going to change some of the colors as well. So here we're going to change the middle to black and then the top color to red. Now I can see what this looks like in the camera. So I can see that I probably need to make some changes to the size in order for this to render correctly. So once we change these to 10, I'll then move the ball back, zoom in a little bit more. And now I'm going to see what this looks like. So wow, my game's really high in the air. So I'm just going to bring this down back to earth. And we're just going to try and position this in the middle of the screen. So when I zoom over, look at my game, I'm in a little bit of a better position. I want to come a little bit closer. There's a little bit of trial and error here to get the position correct. So I'm going to change this around as well so the Pokeball looks in the middle, so you can see when it renders that we have the eye of the ball, so to speak, right in the middle. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually import Pikachu. Pikachu is extremely small right now. We're going to move it back from from Pokeball. I'm just going to zoom around to kind of show what the camera is looking at, so we have a good degree of what this will look like when we import it in. I'm going to change the scale here to 20 on each side. We're going to rotate Pikachu around so that we can see it, and then we're just going to place Pikachu in the middle, and then we can see if it's set up correctly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a physic material to bounce. So essentially the ball is bounceable. Once we've created this material, I'm going to put this into the materials object folder just to make it easy to understand where things are. Then what I can do is select Pokeball, and then I'm going to apply this material, or physic material rather, to the ball itself. So I'm just going to go to add component. Then I'm going to type sphere collider and then select bounce. Essentially what this does is it allows the ball to bounce around and move. The next thing that I need to do is add a new component, and this new component is for a rigid body, so that Unity knows that this is an object that cannot move, that is rigid. I'm also going to take off gravity as well, so that the ball doesn't fall from the face of Earth. Now we need to create a script. This script will handle throwing the ball, or rather Pokeball. So we're just going to call this throw. And I'm going to change the language to JavaScript. And you can use JavaScript or C# here if you need to. Then what I'm going to do is find the assets, put throw into my scripts folder, and then open up the JavaScript file for throw. So now essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating a function or functions written in JavaScript to handle throwing the ball. So essentially what we're doing here is we're going to handle, I guess, two different functions. We're going to handle mouse up and mouse down, but first we'll set the power. Then we need to set our gravity. So here we're going to create a new vector, if I can spell correctly, with a specific location. Then I'm going to specify a position, which will be from the input of where the mouse position is at the start when the mouse position is down. Then I'm going to specify Z on the start position to the location of transform position Z minus the camera main transform position Z, so we know exactly where the point of input comes from between the camera and between the item itself. Then we're going to specify the actual start position, so we're going to use the camera to do this. So once we do this, we're actually going to rename our function here. Sorry, call this start, and it's going to be called on mouse down, and then our other function is going to be called on mouse up. Just change this to uppercase. So on mouse up, we're going to do something very similar to what we did in on mouse down. We're going to specify an end position, so we're going to find a start position of when a mouse was down, and then also an end position when the mouse is lit up. Or on iOS, this will be a touch down and touch off. So you can see the relative position. And here we're just doing something very similar to what we did above, except this time we're specifying an end position rather than a start position. So the next thing we need to do is just specify the end position. We'll use the same main screen to world. Oops, screen to world. I'm going to specify a point of end position. I'll just specify point here. And then the last thing we need to do is specify force. So we're going to calculate the force between the two positions. So here, end position and start position. Then we're going to specify force Z, which is going to include force magnitude. And then we're going to normalize the force. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the component. So in this case, we're going to get the rigid body of the Pokeball. And once we have the component, we're going to apply that force to it by using the add force function of force times power. And then we're just going to run this real quickly. Just check for any errors. Now, this appears to be correct, but I just want to highlight that we just need to add in the start position. So mouse in, mouse up, and then the other function is on, mouse down. We specify the start position, which is a vector. Now, if we flip back over to Unity, we should, if we go to Pokeball, just check that everything is set up correctly here. Let's throw it up. If I go to play, I should be able to throw this Pokeball. There we go. We're able to throw the Pokeball, which is a great start. The next thing we need to do is add a change so that when we throw, we have a collision. So the first thing we need to do is actually to specify a rigid body without gravity for Pikachu. Then we're going to add a box collider. Now the box collider is huge. I should probably head over to scene quickly. You can see that we'd actually hit it every single time. So I'm just going to specify a smaller size of a collider here. And then I'm going to add this component. Then I'm going to add another one, actually, another script. So now we're going to handle the collision itself. This time we're going to call this... We're actually going to use C# rather first. And then I'm going to call this hit object. I'm going to create that. Now I have just a default C# file set up for hit object with a public class of hit object. And then I need to define a couple of things. So first I'm going to define the game object. So the item in this case will always be Pikachu. So let me just add in some comment here to set the object. Currently we have these two functions set up, but we're actually going to change these. I'm going to add in a new function for on collision. Enter. So when the on collision enter rather, then we're going to specify collision with a variable of col. And we're just writing some C# here to handle the collision. So when Pokeball enters this field, we can do something with it. So here what we're going to do is, firstly I want to write a log out so that when we show this demo, it's clear that Pikachu has been hit. And then underneath this, we're going to actually remove the item completely so that when the item displaced being Pikachu, it'll just eventually it'll be destroyed from the scene. I can just get rid of these, and then I'm just going to have another function in here as well. And this function is going to be on trigger event. So when an event is triggered, we're just going to print it. We're just going to currently push this out to debug. So let me just tidy this up a little bit. I'm going to enter debug. I'm going to log. So I log the event triggered. And I'm going to test this quickly. And now I'm going to jump over back into Unity. I'm going to head over to Pikachu. Check everything is set up. I'm going to play this and now we should be able to hit Pikachu. And there we go. So now that we've got started, I think it's time that we export this and run this on an actual device. So we're going to choose iOS here. We're going to add our scene. And then we're just going to hit build and run. Here we're just going to specify the location. So I'm just going to call this collisions iOS. And hit save. And then we will build out our project. So now what will happen is that Unity will start to build out this project with all of the assets that we've set up. And then what, fingers crossed, should happen is that once we open this project in XCode, we'll be able to build this, in this case for our iPad. So once this is built, we'll just need to open up the Xcode project. We'll enable bitcode to no. So we don't want to spot bitcode. This will run and install on our iPad. So now that I have this up on my iPad, I'm going to select the app. It will load. And then I should be able to throw this at Pikachu. And there you go. That's how easy it is to use Unity and Xcode together.